I wasn't supposed to see that message, yet it suddenly appeared on Marcus's phone as he stepped away from the table to take a call beneath the gentle amber lighting of the rooftop restaurant. The screen flashed briefly, catching my eye I hadn't intended to glance. I was merely moving my wine glass to avoid knocking it over, but there it was, perfectly clear. Let her finish the deal, then cut her loose. It came from Gavin Rhee, the new CEO. Those words scorched into my mind silently, but sharply. I blinked, but they didn't vanish. My hand halted mid-motion, the glass nearly tipping over across the table. The Barnes clients laughed with their CFO, completely unaware we had spent 9 months tirelessly bringing them to this moment. A deal among the largest in the company's history. A comprehensive AI infrastructure package worth over $40 million. I had crafted every clause and contingency myself. I sat up straighter just as Marcus returned, offering his usual polished smile, though it never quite reached his eyes. Yet I noticed a subtle flicker, a narrowing of his gaze. He knew I'd seen the message I returned, a slow, calm smile in response. Let the game commence. I thought the dinner proceeded like a well-orchestrated performance. Marcus toasted to cross-functional teamwork. The clients raised their glasses, and I nodded at all the appropriate points. Still, internally, something had shifted. The room remained unchanged, but I was different now. I watched Marcus closely. He sat more rigidly than usual, frequently checking his phone, his fingers twitching with each vibration. He laughed at moments that felt off his facade held, but just barely. Meanwhile, the clients exuded warmth and praise. "Nicole, your leadership has been exceptional," Eric Barnes remarked. "Honestly, if you were running the whole show, we would have closed this deal last month." Before I could reply, the waiter returned to refill our drinks, glancing at me, then to Eric, speaking with forced cheerfulness. "Always a pleasure serving the CEO and her team." I caught Marcus's expression the instant those words landed, his knuckles whitening as he gripped his glass stem tightly. He said nothing, but the tightening of his jaw and grip spoke volumes. Their plan wasn't merely to cut me loose. They expected me to hand over the signed contract first. Suddenly, the laughter around me seemed distant, echoing down a hallway where I no longer belonged. The warmth of the lights, the aroma of seared scallops and aged Merlot, all blurred beneath the crushing weight of what I now knew. I smiled again, but not for the clients. This time, it was for myself. Something had fractured, not inside me, but in my surroundings, and I was already strategizing how to use that crack. The wine lingered sweetly on my tongue at dinner, but by the time I returned home, the sweetness had vanished. The city lights outside my window appeared altered. Colder and more remote, I slipped off my blazer, letting it drape over the chair's back, and gazed at the glowing skyline that once inspired me. And just like that, memories flooded back. Not 1, not 2, but 3 promotions I should have received. The first was 3 years prior. Our firm had secured the Lockwell contract, a $10 million deal I negotiated almost alone while my supervisor was on paternity leave. I still recall the executive team's congratulatory email. "Amazing work, Nicole. You've outdone yourself." Yet when the internal promotion list came out that quarter, Marcus received the title Upgrade. Marcus, who had only joined 6 months earlier and wasn't even in the building when I flew out to pitch Lockwell in person. I swallowed the insult and kept working the second time. I was told I was too valuable in my current position to be promoted. This was during the Xenotech project, another major deal I built from the ground up. HR termed it a strategic necessity to retain me where I was. Marcus called it a temporary pause. The third was just 6 months ago. I prepared extensively. Weeks spent updating my internal pitch deck, gathering peer recommendations, and mentoring 2 junior associates to demonstrate leadership. But when the email finally arrived, there was nothing. No mention, no explanation. Later, I overheard quiet hallway talk. The executive team thought I was too sharp, too precise, too independent. Apparently, a woman who doesn't depend on others is harder to control. My phone buzzed. Pulling me back to the present, I glanced down to see Mom's name. I let it ring twice before answering, trying to sound light. "Hey, Ma." Her voice was warm and steady. "Hi, baby. Just checking in. You sounded tired the other day." "I'm fine," I lied, watching my reflection in the dark window. "You sure?" She pressed softly. "You've been working so hard. I hope they see that they see you." I hesitated, then smiled, though she couldn't see it. Of course, they appreciate me. But behind my teeth, bitterness curled tightly. I looked away from the glass, blinking rapidly as my eyes stung more than I expected. Seconds later, a soft ping sounded from my laptop. Leaning over, I checked it. A message from Ava, my assistant, the only person in that building who never underestimated me. The message was brief, no subject line, just an attachment and one line. "You didn't get this from me." I clicked to open a PDF titled Q4 Restructuring Proposal Confidential. My name was absent from all upcoming leadership tracks, not even as a possibility. But Marcus's name was everywhere. New team lead, strategic lead, East Coast expansion. I stared at the document, bile rising in my throat. So that's how they viewed me. A tool, a stopgap, someone to build the bridge but never cross it. I closed the file and sat silently. For the first time in ages, I let myself feel it, not suppress it. The bitterness, it settled into my bones like a deep winter. Yet, deep inside, I knew it wouldn't linger long. Not this time. It had all started as just another lunch. Or so I thought. 2 months ago, Eric Barnes, COO of Barnes Tech and our biggest client prospect, asked if I could meet off the record. This wasn't unusual. Eric preferred discussing business outside formal settings. I expected the typical back and forth about delivery schedules or tech specs. We met at a modest cafe on East 44th, with white brick walls and reclaimed wood tables, where cutlery clinks softly and the staff already knows your name. Eric arrived 5 minutes early, sleeves rolled to his elbows, no jacket or tie, just casual enough to lower your guard, but never sloppy. He smiled as he sat across from me. "Appreciate you making the time." "Always," I replied. "Anything to keep this deal moving." But the moment our drinks arrived, I sensed something unusual. "Let me know if you want further changes." He wasn't scrolling through emails or reviewing files. He simply sipped his espresso, watching me intently as if he were quietly deciphering an unspoken truth. Then he leaned forward slightly. "Nicole," he said softly, "can I ask you something personal?" I blinked in surprise. "Sure." "Why are you still here?" I paused, caught off guard. "Excuse me?" He gave a casual shrug. "I've seen your work. Your strategy decks are precise, like surgical instruments. Your risk models, elegant. Honestly, I've reviewed some of the deliverables your team sent over Marcus's name is on them. But the framework? That's not his thinking. It's yours." A familiar bitterness, built from months of being overlooked, stirred deep within me. I kept my voice steady. "That's how the team operates shared credit." Eric didn't flinch. "You deserve more than shared credit." I wasn't sure how to respond. Part of me felt flattered. The other part remained wary. He swirled his cup thoughtfully and added, "Look, I'm not trying to interfere with your career, but if you ever get tired of being underestimated, if you ever decide to build something on your own," he paused, locking eyes with me, "we'd be willing to fund it." The words hung between us, direct, unpolished, sincere. I let out a small laugh to ease the tension. That's a generous hypothetical. "I don't do hypotheticals," he said firmly. "Especially not when I've already declined deals from people less capable than you." That caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" He leaned back in his chair. We turned down a deal Marcus led last year. They pitched hard, looked impressive on the surface. But when we dug deeper, conflicts of interest, vague performance guarantees, messy supplier relationships, just sloppy. And when we asked for clarity, all we got was deflection. My stomach twisted. That deal had been called a near miss internally. No one ever told me Barnes walked away because of Marcus. Or why? Eric softened his tone. I'm telling you this because I believe in people who build things properly, you do, and that's rare. The waiter came by, and neither of us had touched our food. I forced a smile, trying to maintain my composure, but my mind was racing. That conversation shouldn't have meant anything, just words exchanged over espresso. But 2 months later, alone in my apartment with a signed termination notice and a silenced phone, it meant everything Eric had seen what others refused to acknowledge. And now I couldn't stop wondering what it would look like to create something of my own. Not just in theory, but in reality. That day, something was planted inside me. Though I didn't realize it yet, it had already begun to grow. Some seeds don't bloom in sunlight. They grow in silence, in shadow, sometimes in secret. After that lunch with Eric, something shifted subtly inside me, like a change in air pressure before a storm. I didn't leave that cafe with a grand plan or a resignation letter burning a hole in my purse. No. I left with a quiet question echoing in my chest. What if I could? Once that question took root, it never left. I kept it to myself. Not telling my mother, my closest friends, or even Ava instead, I started researching late at night after work, in the quiet of my apartment. When the city was still and the noise of office politics couldn't reach me, I began with the basics. Legal structures, tax brackets, business licenses. I pored over regulatory articles like bedtime stories, highlighting everything I didn't yet understand. I wasn't fantasizing, I was studying a blueprint. A week later, I found myself sitting in a downtown office across from Alan Rightedgeway, a sharp, no-nonsense attorney who once worked in our company's compliance department. He left 2 years ago, disillusioned by the executive team's selective ethics. When I told him what I wanted, he didn't hesitate. "You want airtight?" he said, tapping his pen. "No shortcuts, no paper trails back to your current employer." I nodded firmly. "I want it clean, and I want it mine." He gave a brief smile. "We can make that happen." For 2 hours, we laid out a formation strategy. Alan filed the LLC under a discreet holding name, Rivers and Rowe, drawn from my middle name and my grandmother's maiden name, neutral, untraceable, unless someone really dug deep. Then came the business account. I quietly opened it at a local credit union under the new entity, no flashy branding, no staff, no office lease. Just an account number, a file, and a password only. I knew it wasn't a business yet. Not really. It was a container waiting to hold something real. Still, I was cautious I didn't start transferring data or whispering ideas in the hallways. If I was going to do this, it would be by the book and beyond suspicion. But I hadn't counted on Ava. She caught me late one evening, standing alone in the team server room, staring at export logs as if they were Morse code. "You're not really watching backup logs for fun," she said, arms crossed. Startled, I turned. "Just some late admin cleanup." She raised an eyebrow. "That's the worst lie you've told." I said nothing, only smiled faintly and closed the window. She hesitated, then stepped closer. "Whatever it is, I'm in, unless you tell me not to be." There was a pause. I could have dismissed her, but something in her steady, loyal, brave expression made me breathe out slowly. I pulled a small USB drive from my bag and held it out. "No names, no details," I said. "Just client decks, my own versions, clean files, nothing proprietary, nothing signed." Without hesitation, she took it. "Give me 2 hours." And she delivered that night, while most of the office scrolled through dinner menus and social feeds. Ava quietly copied everything I'd authored over the last 18 months. Strategy briefs, risk models, budget scenarios, all original, all mine. We spoke little while she worked. When finished, she handed me the drive and said, "It's on a clean partition, no metadata, you're good." I nodded. "Thank you." Before leaving, she paused. "Whatever you're building, it's already stronger than what they think they own." When the door closed behind her, I sat in the dark, the USB cold in my palm. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't rebellion. It was preparation. It was the plan I never thought I'd need. Until now, there's a kind of pride that doesn't shout. It doesn't seek applause. It lives in the quiet satisfaction of knowing you built something others thought you couldn't. That was the pride I felt as I scrolled through the final terms of the Barnes Tech contract. It was just past 7:08 p.m. The conference room was dim, illuminated only by my laptop's blue glow and the flickering city lights beyond the window. Everyone else had gone home hours ago, except me. Not when we were this close. The total contract value was $42.3 million. Spread over a 10-year rollout of our AI infrastructure suite, I had refined every clause. Pricing detail, contingency, data security measure, and delivery benchmark. Every footnote bore my fingerprints. No legal assistant, no ghostwriter. This deal wasn't the work of a team. The message came from me. At exactly 7:34 p.m., my inbox chimed Eric Barnes. Final review complete. Everything looks clean on our end. We're ready when you are. I leaned back slowly, fingertips steepled beneath my chin. Ready when you are tonight. Those words carried a different weight. This was the kind of deal that could make a career, turn associates into partners, directors into legends. Except I already knew the legend wouldn't bear my name. Footsteps echoed outside the conference room before the door swung open. Marcus entered, his tie loosened, smile too rehearsed. "There she is," he said, clapping his hands lightly. "Are we closer?" I met his gaze, expression neutral. Eric just confirmed they're ready to sign. Of course they are. Crossing the room, he stood beside me, feigning interest in the contract on my screen. "You've done incredible work, Nicole Truly." That tone again. Too smooth, too tightly controlled a week ago. I might have mistaken it for sincerity, but not now. Not after reading the message on his phone. Not after all I'd already set in motion. Still, I nodded politely. Appreciate it. He lingered a moment too long, then tapped my shoulder lightly before turning away. "Let's make history." The door clicked shut behind him. I exhaled slowly, then hovered my mouse over the send for signature button. My cursor paused. Just for a moment, that inner voice I'd silenced whispered again. Wait. Minutes later, the conference room door creaked open. Ava slipped in, her face tight. "Hey," she whispered, closing the door behind her. I tilted my head. "Everything okay?" She approached, lowering her voice. "You haven't hit send yet, right?" "No." "Why?" Ava glanced toward the glass walls, then back at me. "I heard something from HR. They're talking about a restructuring announcement. Layoffs." I frowned. "That's normal during Q4. "Nicole," she said firmly. "I also heard your name." My stomach dropped, but I kept my face steady. "Are you sure?" "Not 100%, but I trust the source." I turned back to my laptop. The contract stared at me, still unsent. They said, "Wait until next week to make anything official." Ava didn't need to finish. I understood perfectly. If I sent that contract tonight, they'd get their crown jewel and no reason to keep me. I closed the document and powered down my laptop. "Thanks, Ava," I said quietly. "Let's hold for now." She nodded and slipped out standing in the half-light, arms crossed, I felt pride radiate from somewhere deeper than any title could reach. Because for the first time, I didn't need their approval. I had the leverage I had the client. And they had no idea what I planned to do with both. The next morning started like any other, until it didn't. At 8:01 a.m., I stepped into the office lobby, clutching my usual stainless steel coffee tumbler. Security nodded as always. The elevator dinged its familiar chime. Nothing seemed different, yet everything was about to change. The hallway outside my office felt unnervingly still. Approaching my desk, I noticed something strange. The conference room door was ajar inside. Marcus and two senior managers huddled over his laptop. Their voices dropped as I passed by. That was the first flicker of unease. I sat down and logged in. The screen blinked once, then froze. I re-entered my credentials. Nothing, just a soft red warning. Access denied, frowning. I reached for my phone to call it, but before I could dial, an email alert buzzed from HR. Subject: status update, time 9:02 a.m. I clicked, and my world tilted. Your employment with Syntech is terminated effective immediately. Your credentials have been deactivated. Please do not attempt to access company systems. HR will contact you for exit logistics. No greeting, no signature, just 5 cold, clipped lines. I reread it, hoping for a mistake, a prank, a phishing scam. But my badge had already stopped working. I realized it when trying to open the secure folder on my desk drive. The reader blinked red. My Slack logged out, my email vanished. My calendar wiped clean. I sat frozen for a full minute. The only sound in the office was the faint hum of overhead lights. Then my phone buzzed. Ava, they cut you off. I just found out I'm done. I'm leaving. I won't stand here and smile while they erase you. Another buzz followed. From Sarah, a junior analyst I'd mentored. I just saw the update in HR's backend. They've reassigned your projects to Marcus without listing your name. That was when reality sank in. Not just that they'd fired me, but that they were trying to erase me completely, my fingerprints on the deal. Months of work, leadership, planning, legacy, being buried in real time. Marcus didn't look surprised when I passed him 10 minutes later in the hallway. He offered the same forced smile and muttered, "Hope everything works out." It wasn't a farewell. It was a performance. Returning to my desk, realizing it was likely the last time, I noticed something on my chair. A small manila envelope, unlabeled and sealed. I glanced around. No one was watching. I opened it. Inside lay a black USB drive and a yellow sticky note. Ava's handwriting. "You'll need this. It's everything you built." My throat tightened. I didn't know whether to cry, scream, or laugh. Years spent building trust at that company sacrificed weekends, holidays, sleep stayed late, showed up early, hit every target. And in 1 minute, 5 sentences, they erased me, but Ava hadn't. She remembered she saved what mattered. I slipped the USB into my bag, glanced around my office one last time. The framed MIT certificate, shelves of AI journals, the empty chair opposite mine where clients asked questions Marcus never could answer. In that moment, something inside me snapped, not with rage, but clarity. I wasn't leaving empty-handed. They'd fired me. But I still had my relationships, my knowledge. And thanks to Ava, my work stepping outside, the cold morning air hit me like a second awakening. I didn't look back. I already knew this wasn't the end. This was when they made their biggest mistake. All I had to do was stay quiet and watch it unfold. That night, the silence in my apartment was unbearable. No laptop humming, no Slack pings, no calendar alerts. Just stillness. I curled up on the couch. Only light coming from my open laptop. On the screen was the contract I had painstakingly crafted over nearly a year. The same one Barnes Tech had given their final approval to just a day ago, now felt radioactive in my hands. My cursor hovered hesitantly over the file named Barnes AI Infrafinal V27 PDF. My finger poised above the delete key, I had believed myself tougher than this I'd built in fallback plans, established rivers, and prepared a clean departure. Yet nothing readied me for the sting of being discarded so coldly. No explanation, no gratitude, no acknowledgement of all I'd contributed. I hadn't braced for the hollow ache of invisibility. The USB Ava entrusted me with lay on the coffee table like a lifeline I wasn't sure I deserved. The blinking cursor blinked back at me. Just erase it. End this chapter. Wipe away the proof. Begin anew. Then my phone rang. It was Mom. I almost let it go unanswered, but something inside finally broke, and I picked up. "Hi, Ma," I said, forcing casualness into my voice. "Hi, baby," she answered, gentle yet alert. "Are you all right?" I hesitated. "Yeah, just been a long day." Silence hung for a moment before she said softly, "I know that long day voice what happened." Tears welled, but I blinked them away. It's nothing. Just corporate chaos. Another pause. Then the question I wasn't ready for. "Want me to come over?" That simple offer, so soft and sincere, hit me harder than any betrayal in the boardroom. She lived 2 hours away, had arthritis in both knees, rarely drove at night anymore, but she would have come. No questions asked. "No, Ma," I whispered. "I'm fine. Just need to get through tonight. I'll be better tomorrow." She didn't argue. "You don't have to be better, just honest with yourself." I choked back a response. "I love you." "I love you too, more than any deal. Nicole, more than any job." After hanging up, I collapsed. My body shook with sobs I'd been holding back all day. Grief, shame, anger, pouring out in waves. When it passed, I sat still, arms wrapped around my knees, feeling small for the first time in years. That's when a notification blinked on my laptop screen. A single unopened email from 2 months ago, from Eric Barnes. Subject line, "You know what you're worth." I opened it, Nicole. "I don't know how this deal will turn out, but I want you to know this. We've worked with many firms and teams. You are the first to make us feel like our vision mattered as much as our money. You're more than a project lead. You're a builder, a strategist. If you ever want to do something bigger, on your own terms, call me. We'll back you without hesitation. Eric." I sat motionless, rereading those words over and over. My tears hadn't yet dried, but something inside began to shift. It wasn't only the message itself, but its timing. Eric saw in me what I hadn't yet. Before the contract, the firing, the humiliation. He recognized something worthy of investment, and I had almost erased it. I glanced back at the USB, then the unopened folder on my desktop, then at the framed photo of Mom and me on the bookshelf, both smiling, arms draped around each other at my college graduation. "You know what you're worth," I whispered softly, a fragile mantra just audible enough to convince myself I didn't delete the file. Instead, I renamed it R&R Signature Ready PDF and closed the laptop. Not out of surrender, but because for the first time in a day, I knew what I had to do tomorrow wouldn't just be another day. It would be the first day of mine. Resolve isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet calm after a storm, the clarity you gain when you stop waiting for permission. Morning light filtered through the blinds, casting thin beams across the hardwood floor like a gentle spotlight. I hadn't slept well, but I didn't need to sleep is for healing. I was done healing. I was moving forward. Sitting at the kitchen table, hair pulled back, sweatshirt sleeves rolled up, I faced my laptop, a mug of black coffee, and the USB Ava had passed me like a torch. The contract, now named R&R Signature Ready PDF, was open, identical to the original save for one detail, the signature block. The Signarec logo was gone, replaced by a simple header reading, Rivers and Rowe LLC. Authorized Representative Nicole Everett, Chief Executive Officer. I stared at it, stunned. It felt surreal to see my name there, not hidden in footnotes, not scrubbed from press releases, but front and center owning it. I didn't flinch. Not this time. Before clicking send, I opened a secure chat with Alan Ridageway, the compliance lawyer who'd helped me form Rivers and Rowe the night before. I'd asked simply, if I act tomorrow, am I bulletproof? His reply came within 5 minutes. Everything's clean. No intellectual property conflicts. Your draft is stronger than theirs. Full go-ahead, I trusted Alan. He'd spent years inside Center, knew their weak spots intimately, especially in contracts and control. This time, he wasn't defending them. I opened Gmail, started a new message to Eric Barnes' subject. As RNRR, signature ready, PDF. My fingers hovered, then typed a single line. Thank you for your patience, I'm ready. Then I hit send afterward. An eerie stillness settled. The calm before a bowstring snaps. I closed the laptop, walked to the window, cradling my coffee outside. New York was waking. Joggers slicing through the park, a delivery truck backing up with slow beeps, just another Tuesday. Except it wasn't my phone buzzed Eric Barnes' timestamp. 3 minutes after sending, I tapped the notification. We approve. Funding is still on the table. You're doing the right thing. Announcement will be joint this Friday. Congratulations, Nicole. I stared at the screen, breath caught without thinking. I smiled. Not wide, not triumphant, just quiet and focused. Behind that message was everything I'd fought to believe again. That my work mattered, integrity could win, and I didn't have to play by someone else's rules to build something better. A second message followed from Eric's team. Please forward banking details for invoice processing. Expect first installment within 24 hours. 24 hours. The company that fired me by email was about to see $42 million flow into the hands of the woman they tried to erase. I sat back down on the couch, fingers trembling, not with fear, but with control slowly returning, piece by piece. One last thing remained. I typed a message to Ava, no subject. Just, it's done. You saved more than you know. She replied instantly. They're spiraling here. Marcus hasn't left his office, but I'm smiling. I exhaled slowly and typed back, give it a week. Let me know if you want it further adapted. Let me know if you want to build something real. No pressure, no promises. Just an open door before I closed the laptop again. I opened the folder labeled Contracts and moved the freshly signed RNR file into a new subfolder I named Executed. Then, with quiet resolve, I renamed the parent folder Built by Belief that morning. There was no celebration, no champagne poured, no call to my mother. Not yet. That would come later. For now, I simply sat with the weight of it all. The new direction, the risk I'd embraced, the fire it would ignite. I had signed the largest deal in the company's history. Only now, it wasn't their company anymore. It was mine. Power rarely makes an announcement. Sometimes it arrives quietly, printed starkly in black and white on a front page. By 9:04 a.m. the next day, the headline had already broken. Barnes Tech signs $42 million AI infrastructure deal with Rivers and Rowe LLC. In Tech Edge Daily, I read it twice to convince myself it was real, that it was published, and that it made no mention of Syntech. Not once, the article featured a photo of Eric Barnes shaking hands with a faceless woman, cropped carefully so no one could tell it was me. The caption read, New tech firm led by former Syntech strategist finalizes largest private sector AI deal of the quarter strategist, not executive, not manager. The message was crystal clear to anyone paying attention. I braced for the fallout, and it came quicker than I expected. By 9:15, my phone buzzed relentlessly. Unknown numbers, former colleagues, Even a journalist I hadn't spoken to since the Lockwell launch, I ignored every call, then Marcus's name flashed on the screen. First, once, then twice, then 4 more times. Each one I sent straight to voicemail. Finally, a text arrived. "Nicole, we need to talk urgent." I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the article to Alan, my attorney, adding only one line: "Prepare for inbound noise, not answering today." He replied with a thumbs-up emoji and a note: "Proud of you, let the silence speak." While sipping my coffee, Ava messaged me. They just saw it. Marcus slammed his laptop so hard it cracked. I couldn't help but smile seconds later. Another update. Lindsay from PR is walking around like someone shot her. She asked 3 people, "Who is Rivers and Rowe?" I hadn't told anyone the name of my LLC, not even Ava, until the morning I sent the contract. That secrecy made the reveal all the sweeter. Now they knew. Now it was public. Now they were scrambling. Hours later, Ava sent another note. "Just overheard Marcus on the phone saying, 'We've lost leverage. It's out of our hands.'" He sounds defeated. That was the turning point. For years, Marcus had moved like someone untouchable, always a step ahead politically, always charming enough to dodge consequences. But this deal exposed what Syntech refused to admit. He hadn't built the bridge. He merely crossed it. I had built it. Every number, every clause, every provision was mine. I knew the client's pain points, the legal teams that required extra time, the metrics that would make procurement say yes. And now that knowledge held value, not as an employee, but as an equal. At 11:01, I received an unexpected call from an internal number at Center. I let it ring, then checked the voicemail out of curiosity. It was Linda, the longtime PR director. "Hi, Nicole. I just saw the article. I don't know what to say." Surprised, honestly. A bit impressed. "Hope we can catch up soon and clear the air." The air, I thought, had never been clearer. I forwarded the voicemail to Ava, who replied, "Linda's in full crisis mode. Just asked if anyone has your personal email. Should I pretend not to?" I laughed softly and answered, "Pretend we've never met." That afternoon, I stepped outside for a walk. The chill in the air wasn't as biting today. There was something about passing newsstands, watching people scroll their phones, knowing my name, though unseen, was behind every headline. It felt like reclaiming space. I wasn't merely breathing. I was making room for myself again. Later, I opened my laptop and read the article a third time, this time slower, letting each word sink in. Every line carried more than a deal. It carried a narrative they'd tried to erase me. But now my absence was the story. For the first time since that termination email arrived, I didn't feel like someone recovering from a blow. I felt like someone holding the pen. The contract didn't land where they thought it would. It landed exactly where it belonged. There's a kind of validation that doesn't need trophies or applause. It arrives quietly in inboxes, in subject lines that make your breath catch. It started with one message at 8:09 the next morning. Claire Hoskins, Director of Procurement at Veltic Solutions, who I'd worked with closely for 2 years, building more than workflows but trust, sent a note. Subject: "Checking in, Nicole. Just saw the news. I don't know the full story. But we want to move our account to Rivers and Rowe leadership here unanimously agreed. We aren't loyal to the brand. We're loyal to you." I stared at her message for a moment, then exhaled. Then came another. "Graham Lee, CTO of a smaller health tech firm we onboarded just last quarter. Not surprised to see you behind the deal. We always knew the magic didn't come from Center. Let us know what it takes to transition under your new umbrella we're in." 2 messages within 10 minutes. My inbox felt like it was pulsing. Then a third arrived. Elena Patel, head of systems at Castor & Logistics, a woman who once told me I was the only person in the sector who listens before talking. Nicole, we saw the Rivers and Row announcement. Let's skip the PR games. I always knew you were why we stayed through budget cuts and reorganizations. Let's set up a migration plan. No delay PS. Hope Ava's with you. That girl is sharp. I laughed and forwarded it to Ava, who replied instantly, Are we building a new client wall yet? This email deserves a frame. But the message that moved me most came just before lunch. Subject: Our congratulations, from Daniel M. Chen, CEO of Barnes Tech Short Direct. Exactly like Daniel. We're ready to deepen our partnership. When you're ready to talk product development, we'd like to explore investment options. Let's set a meeting next week. I leaned back, heart racing, not from fear, but quiet awe. Daniel wasn't just renewing the contract he was offering to invest in my next chapter. Not because of Rivers and Row's track record, there wasn't one, nor because of Syntech's reputation, which had been scrubbed from this equation. He wanted to invest in me for years to come. Let me know if you want me to adapt this further. I had carried the burden of execution while others collected the applause late nights, crossing time zones, translating complex jargon into clarity for boardrooms filled with men who wouldn't remember my name until the prophets spoke. I watched Marcus smile through my achievements. But today, the names flooding my inbox remembered, and at 2:47 in the afternoon, it all changed. Standing by the window of my new co-working space, I looked down at the street below. The space was bare, no plaques, no logos on the glass, just a desk, a screen, and a whiteboard scribbled with half-formed ideas. Yet, that was enough. The shift I'd long awaited was here for so long. I measured my worth by what others acknowledged. Promotions withheld, praise rerouted, ideas recycled and returned with someone else's name at the top. Now, recognition was real. Operational, financial, tangible. 4 major clients were transferring entire portfolios without pitches, discounts, or introductory offers. They weren't chasing brands. They followed trust. A knock on the glass wall pulled me from my thoughts. Ben, the community coordinator, stood there holding a modest white envelope and a small rectangular box. "Delivery for Rivers and Row," he said. Before leaving, I opened the envelope to find a handwritten card from Claire at Veltonics. We always knew who we were really working with. Here's to building something better. Inside the box was a sleek pen engraved with the words, "Lead, don't follow." I ran my thumb over the lettering. Smiling at the irony Center refused to grant me an executive title, despite years of leading without one. Now, without them, I had a company, a contract, a growing client base. And my name on every document. Validation doesn't come with trophies. It comes with belief. And this time, it was truly mine. When you're right, you don't shout. You simply show up with facts and let the silence do the rest. Then the letter arrived by courier at 8:37 that morning. Heavy cardstock, center letterhead, faint watermark of the legal department inside. It formally notified me of pending legal action regarding unauthorized client interference and breach of proprietary agreements. I didn't read past that they were suing me. For what? For legally outmaneuvering them, for protecting my own work, for refusing to sign a contract they never offered. I slid the letter across the table to Alan Ridgway, who sat sipping his second espresso in our shared downtown conference room. His reading glasses perched low as he scanned it, a dry smirk playing on his lips. "They're really doing this?" I asked, almost laughing. He shrugged. "Of course it's not about winning. It's intimidation." I leaned back. "They want noise. They're losing control." He tapped the letter. "You took their biggest account, their top strategist, and 4 long-term clients. All legally. They're panicking." Flipping to the last page, he chuckled. "Look who signed this." I leaned forward. Matthew Ivers, Syntech's newly promoted in-house counsel, met him once at a conference. Polished, sharp, maybe too young. Alan laughed again, leaning back. He was my intern when I still wore cheap suits and wrote contracts by hand. I raised an eyebrow. You're serious? Dead serious. I taught him everything he knows, unfortunately. Not everything I know. Folding the letter, he placed it back in the envelope. I'll draft a reply today. You won't see a courtroom. Confident, Alan grinned. Nicole, you were never officially an employee, no non-compete, no IP clause. They classified you as a contractor to dodge benefits. I nodded, recalling every vague promise about full-time status. They loved my flexibility. Billing hours without paying time off kept me dangling, quietly useful, quietly disposable. But that technicality, the one meant to save them money, would bury their lawsuit, Alan continued. We'll respond with your onboarding email, contractor terms, and last tax document they'll fold after one round. Adjusting his blazer, he added, just in case, I'll blind copy the Bar Association Ethics Committee. Surprised, I asked, You think it'll go that far? He smiled half-heartedly. No, but it'll make Matthew sweat. Later that afternoon, I received Alan's drafted response. Clinical, bulletproof, and perfectly scathing. He closed with a line I hadn't expected, but instantly loved. My client will not be intimidated by a company that refused to recognize her value, on paper or otherwise. I read it 3 times, letting it sink in. No revenge, no fury, just facts and dignity. I forwarded the email to Ava with one note. They poked the wrong lawyer. She replied instantly. They poked the wrong woman. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks, not because they'd backed down, but because I didn't have to yell to be heard this time. The law was on my side. And finally, so was the truth. Victory isn't always loud. Sometimes it hangs quietly in a frame. Morning light spilled through the tall windows of my new office, soft and golden, warming the white oak floors and the sleek matte-finished desk I'd picked last month. On the wall behind me hung a single frame. No diploma, no press clipping, just a printed screenshot under glass. Let her finish the deal, then cut her loose. Sent at 7:52 p.m. No sender, no logo, just those words. My hand brushed the frame's edge as I straightened it, just as I did every morning. The message that ended my career had started my empire. The door creaked softly behind me. Nicole. I turned, smiling instantly. Mom stood in the doorway, coat folded over one arm, hair pinned neatly, a smile both proud and tired. She rarely visited the city anymore. 2 hours of traffic was hard on her knees, but she insisted on seeing the new space herself. I walked over and hugged her tight. Longer than usual. I brought muffins, she said, handing me a warm paper bag. Blackberry? I asked. Of course you think I'd forget. We laughed. I guided her to the window seat, the one I'd pictured her in when I first dreamed of my own office. Her gaze roamed the space, lingering on the bookshelves, the potted ficus, the stack of investor portfolios on my desk, but her eyes stopped at the framed screenshot. She leaned in slowly, squinting. Her expression froze as she read the message. Then she exhaled softly yet with conviction. They didn't fire you, she said. They set you free. I swallowed and nodded once. Yeah, they did. A sparkle appeared behind her smile as she added, and you walked away with exactly what they thought they were taking. I said nothing. Didn't have to. My phone buzzed gently on the desk. I glanced down at the screen. Tech Edge Morning Report. Breaking news. 5 major clients officially sever ties with Syntech as of today. Rivers and Rowe, founded by former strategist Nicole Everett. Now valued at triple the current market cap. I let out a quiet breath and turned the phone so Mom could see her eyebrows rose in surprise. 3 times. I nodded, still absorbing it myself. And that's without even launching our product division. She leaned back, eyes glistening. You always colored outside the lines. I just never realized you were drawing an entirely new map. We sat together in silence, the kind that holds all that remains unspoken. Outside the glass, the city surged on, impatient, buzzing, ruthless. But here, within these walls, there was space to breathe space, to build space, to become what I'd always known I could be. If only someone had believed in me. Turns out, I didn't need their faith. I only needed my own. I glanced once more at the frame. The message that had tried to erase me had become my foundation. They'd cut me loose, and I had soared.